Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to another edition of Channels Beam. I am Victor Matthias. Now, the much anticipated passage of the electoral bill hit Nigerians with so much hope that the electoral system has now gotten the boost it needs to protect the vote of the ordinary Nigerian. The president had, after rejecting the first draft, assented to the amended document. This edition of the program, we will be looking at the contents of the bill, what it intends to achieve, as well as why it has got Nigerians excited. We will also look at the situation of Nigerian students stranded in Ukraine due to the invasion of the country by Russia. But before we get to all of these discussions, let's first of all take a look at the trending topics in the social media space in the past week.
Nigerians have been reacting to the modus operandi of officials of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency as they carry out their duties. Concerns were expressed over how they stormed the home of some musicians and laid siege on a drug kingpin in the Petty area of Lagos Island, wielding guns and firing some shots. Following the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, people the world over have been expressing worry over the safety of their wards, either living or studying in the country. Twitter Spaces, Zoom chats, and WhatsApp messages, among many numerous channels, have since been used to pass information that will ensure safety of those trapped in the country.
Well, there you go. Those were some of the trends in the past week. But joining us to look at today's topic, we have Samson Itodo. He serves as the Executive Director, Yaga Africa, and the convener of the Not Too Young to Run movement. He is also a member of the Board of Advisors of International IDEA. He is currently engaged in the preparation of Nigeria's Medium-Term Development Plan 2021 to 2025 and Nigeria's Agenda 2050. It's a pleasure to have you join us on the program today, Samson. We also have Ndi Kato. She is the Executive Director of Dini Dari Foundation. She is also joining us via Zoom from Abuja, while Samson is joining us from Oxford in the UK. It's a pleasure to have both of you join us today on the program.
Thank you, Victor.
Of course, you're welcome. Indy, kickstart the conversation for us. I mean, so much has been said. There was so much excitement. There was so much buzz and all of that when the news trickled in that the president had signed the electoral bill. What exactly, was behind all of this buzz?
So it's the fact that there has been. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
Okay, so it's the fact that there has been a huge struggle for this. Civil society has, of course, been putting in lots of energy to making sure it has come forward, and they've not received the sign of this bill since then. It is that, and it's the implication: safer elections, a better electoral system. It means that politicians are held more accountable, even though I'll still say that some of the punishments lying in here do not, match the offenses, but we're still seeing an effort towards that. We're seeing easier entry points for younger people in politics. We're seeing stronger internal political party democracy. So, I mean, this means quite a lot. This is a whole shift, and a new bill on its own. It's a great thing, yeah.
All right, interesting. Samson, let me get your own thoughts on this, especially what part of the bill, was pretty much at the front burner. Which part of that bill is getting you a lot more excited, as it were?
I think several aspects of the bill makes me excited and Nigerians excited. So if you look at the provision that deals with addressing a gap within our electoral process, like the mischief or the case that we experience in Kogi governorship elections, where Prince Abubakar Audu died before the election was concluded. You recall that after election commenced, the election was declared inconclusive, and the gentleman died before INEC declared the final result. And what happened was there was some sort of crisis that we had at that moment. And I would say that what this bill has tried to do is to address that gap within our electoral process. So now, if after election, before results are conducted, a candidate dies, his deputy will become the substantive candidate of the party. And for legislative elections, you have a situation where the parties would have to conduct another primaries to nominate candidates. The other sort of high points of the bill was around electronic accreditation and electronic transmission of results. So a lot of innovations that INEC has introduced have some form of legality now with the provisions of the electoral bill. So moving forward, the BVAS INEC is deploying for elections, including the election results viewing portal would have the force of law. The third major, I would say, positive in part of this bill is around the rights of persons with disability. And I think we need to celebrate that particular provision because that section had only conferred discretionary powers on INEC to make provisions for persons with disability. Now, INEC is going to be compelled. INEC is under law mandated to provide things like hearing aids, like braille ballots, as well as magnifying glasses for persons with disability, to vote at elections. There are other provisions around INEC's power to review results declared under duress. So I'd say since return to democracy, this is one of the best pieces, if not the best piece of election legislation, despite some gaps that still exist within the bill, within the act. I would say if this act is implemented to the latter, we will not only be strengthening our democratic institutions or safeguarding the sanctity of the vote, but what we'll be doing is renewing our faith, in our democracy.
All right, let me hold you there for a bit and bring back Indy again. Indy, Samson has pretty much, enumerated some of the, what was it called, lovely aspects of the bill. But Samson, let me just actually bring this back to you. I mean, because since you made mention of all of these aspects, that has gotten you excited and all of that, how confident are you? Because you're saying all of this is at the background of the fact that if it is, implemented to the letter, how confident are you that all of this, because obviously it's going to be cost effective, the braille ballot, magnifying glasses, hearing aids, and all of it's going to be cost effective. How confident are you that all of this will be implemented before or during the 2023 elections?
The beauty about this law is the kind of citizens' participation and stakeholder interest that it generated. If I'm confident that this law will be implemented, is based on the interest and citizens' commitment to hold our political leaders to account. Therefore, we've got to promote, education. And we've, civil society of Acts National Assembly immediately gazette this legislation and make it available to the people. So first, it's about that public pressure, and we have to sustain that pressure beyond the protest that we organized last week before the assent to the bill, but to begin to look at, the political actors. All our democratic institutions, the judiciary has to be proactive in abreasting themselves or apprising themselves of the provisions of this law, because we require them to make interpretations and hold the political class to account. A lot of these innovations will be contingent on a very active, transparent, and determined regulator. And in this case is INEC. INEC has been vested with a lot of powers in this act, and we will be looking forward to INEC instrumentalizing and using its powers to regulate the character of our political parties. But citizens have a role to play to keep on holding INEC to higher standards and ensure that the commission performs, some of the roles, the regulatory roles that it has been saddled with, in this act. But let me also say this, Victor.
Yeah.
I know the president and his party claims that the president has fulfilled his promise to bequeath to Nigerians a credible electoral process. No, he has only partially fulfilled that promise. There are other actions that are required for credible elections. One is the security agencies, their transparency, their objectivity, and their professionalism is central to the success of any election. The independence of the judiciary also matters a lot. So if the president wants to bequeath to Nigerians, a credible electoral process is to ensure that, the federal government or the state does not interfere with INEC. They don't assault INEC's independence, but they also, ensure that the judiciary is independent as well as the security agencies. And our security agencies need to know that their loyalty is to the Constitution and not to an individual, even if that individual, holds a public office. But they have a duty and a commitment, to protect the process.
Yeah.
Until we get to that stage, then we can't say the president has substantially fulfilled his promise. He's only partially fulfilled his promise to bequeath to Nigerians a credible electoral process.
Yeah, Samson, I would have expected that all of this was included in the bill before it was signed, by the president, or it was assented to by the president, because, like you said, there was a lot of stakeholder engagements, even with INEC and all of that. Why wasn't any provision made for for all of this that you made mention of, to be part of this bill, as it were?
No, you see, there's different aspects of the legislation. You're not going to put everything in one bill. Some of the actions require, administrative action. They don't necessarily have to be in the legislation. There are also subsidiary legislations that will be issued in the form of guidelines and regulations. So in furtherance of some of these provisions, they'll be there. The law is very clear as to INEC's role in the whole security governance architecture when it comes to elections. So I would say that there's these provisions, there are provisions in the current bill. However, it's going to take administrative action. As simple as, who is appointing, what's the caliber of the Inspector General of Police? How is the operational independence of the police guaranteed? Yes, you have some of that in the current police, the Police Act, but can the president, in the course of the management of preparations for the 2023 elections, take a decision to stay neutral, to provide a level playing field for all, that security agencies will not be tasked to go after opposition leaders or opposition candidates or even civil society holding the state to account, that the media will be protected, from all forms of interference and intimidation. So some of these issues that we have raised, they may not necessarily be in the Electoral Act, they will be in other legislation, but there are some constitutional rights that are being violated, and these rights, have to be protected. So my point is, yes, the law addresses some of them, but the Electoral Act will not address every problem. You already have existing laws that should be activated and should be implemented to the latter if you have a political class that is committed to the transparency and credibility of the 2023 general elections.
All right, I would hope that, all of that will be put in place, of course, even before the elections, if we can, fast track another bill, like you said, since everything can be in one bill. But one of the things that I was also hoping you talk about was the inclusion of women and youth. You talked about the inclusion of people with disabilities. What about women and youth? Quickly, just as we wind down in 30 seconds, what are they going to benefit from the passage of this bill?
There's a lot that women and youth will benefit from this bill. While the bill does not make express provisions targeted at young people, there's a generic language. There are no gender-specific sort of provisions in the bill. But the truth is, if you have transparent primaries, if you have internal democracy in political parties, the probability that women and youth will emerge from the candidate nomination process will be very high. If you have situations where politicians will be deterred from compromising INEC officials or from forcing polling officials to declare results under duress, that can also potentially, increase the emergence of women and young people in elections. So I'd say when we look at the cumulative impact of the provisions of this bill, young people, women, and persons with disability will be impacted. But you know, the Constitution is also another way to increase women youth participation. And this week, the National Assembly will be voting on several provisions. We hope that they will vote for the bill to increase the number of seats in the National Assembly for women, because that bill enjoys wide and popular support. And if we're committed to inclusive democracy, then the National Assembly should pass the constitutional amendment on diaspora voting, on reserved seats, as well as independent candidacy this week when they vote on 68 constitutional amendment bills.
All right, let's hope that happens. But I have to say thank you for joining us on the program today. Samson Itodo, you are the Executive Director of YAGA Africa. Unfortunately, bad internet actually put us under our conversation with Indicator, who was joining us via Zoom from Abuja. But that's where we are. That's where we're going to drop this conversation. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll come back with a different focus. Please stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. And now we switch gears to the situation in Ukraine, where, of course, the East European country was invaded by Russia last week, and that put a lot of Nigerians into pandemonium. Now, students in the country have been trying to make way into other neighboring countries, so Poland and Romania and a host of other countries. But the thing is, parents and guardians have been up and about, you know, thinking about what's going on. And one of the people who have been trying to ensure that those who cross into other borders is joining us, or who cross into other borders have a soft landing, is joining us right now on the program. He is Tadeo Motosho. He's the president, Nigerians in Diaspora Organization in Poland. It's a pleasure to have you on the program, Dr. Motosho. We can't hear you. I think your mic is on mute.
You hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thanks again for joining us on the program. So, I mean, from the last time that we spoke, give us an update of how many Nigerians have crossed, you know, into Poland, where you are, and what has been the situation with them.
Yeah, so as we speak now, we've been able to get over 100 people to safety in Warsaw, where they are being accommodated. And luckily, thankfully, you know, the Nigerian embassy has also been very, very helpful. You know, they've been on their feet. Every day they have shuttle going to the border area, as well as the shelters where, you know, people are being left just after they cross the border. So we've been working with the Nigerian embassy, and it's really getting better. So once people cross the border guard moves them to the shelter, and then we can access them from the shelter. And from the shelter, we take them to, you know, to town, sometimes by train, sometimes by coaches, by private cars. But generally, it's getting better. There are lots of volunteers also helping. You know, Europeans, Polish people, non-Polish people. So it is getting better. But as I speak now, I believe we have over 100 people in different parts of cities in Poland.
Yeah, so we've also had reports of, you know, the difficulty being witnessed, or being, you know, that people face trying to cross the border. So it's not about getting into Poland, where people like you, or Romania and all of the other places where people like you are standing by waiting. It's the ability to even, first of all, get past the Ukrainian border. What are the efforts being made to ensure that there is a smooth passage of Nigerians, you know, through those borders?
Yeah, all right. So I'm going to give you a picture of how it looks like. Yesterday, I was around the border, and this is what we observed, and this is what we know also from the information we get from people, you know, who were just allowed to enter. So when you leave Ukraine, usually before you exit Ukraine, there's you know, you have a roadblock where you have the, you know, military checkpoint. So there is actually where the delay begins from. You would have to wait a couple of hours just at that checkpoint before you're able to exit, you know, to be able to go towards the Ukrainian border. All right, so imagine there are, I don't know, thousands of people trying to get out of Ukraine, you know, Africans, Nigerians, Ukrainians themselves, and all of that. So you need to first, you know, spend a couple of hours at that military checkpoint. Once you get over it, then you face the Ukrainian border. And that's where you begin again another journey. You might, you know, spend, I don't know, 24 hours, 48 hours at that point, because there are lots of people trying to cross at the same time. And this is what we've heard, that they are giving priority to, you know, women and children first. And I've had a lot of people call me, say, oh, they said they would not allow us to cross because we are men. I think that's partly true, but at the same time, it's not entirely true. I believe once the women and children have been allowed to cross, you know, the men would be, because as we speak now, there is what you call martial law in Ukraine, which means that men from 18 years old to 50 are not allowed to leave. So they need to join the, you know, the army. So you see
The
civilians,
forces.
you know, carrying guns now and defending their country. So where we have problem mostly now is just the exit of Ukrainian border. Okay, so there are a lot of people now still stuck there, and that's a big challenge. But I believe the federal government is talking to the Ukrainian counterpart. You know, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement yesterday that they are looking for diplomatic ways to be able to access, you know, that place.
All right, so we've also had issues of racial profiling, where they would actually or literally ask people, black people, you know, to drop off buses or not go before the white folks. I mean, how true is that?
Yeah, well, like I said, that usually, it is happening in a way, but that is happening at the Ukrainian points. Like I said, you cross the military check. Once you get over that, you get to the Ukrainian border, where you now, once you exit the Ukrainian border, you get to the Polish border, where they are, you know, willing to welcome you and stamp you in and all of that. So at that Ukrainian border, I believe there's a whole lot of, you know, hold up with this same issue of allowing women and children to go first. And I can imagine that is also happening when you're trying to get on the bus. So they're going to tell you, you need to wait, let the women go, and, you know, let the children go. But obviously, there is no doubt, you know, there will be definitely some people who are just not sensitive and empathic enough to understand that, you know, everybody needs to leave, to exit Ukraine. So definitely there are some reports of racism, which I think they are true. Yeah, but I think the basic reason why that separation started initially was the idea of allowing women to go first and children to go first. But I guess later on, some other people took advantage of it and, you know, started to disallow African and black people to have access to trade.
Well, we'll always come back to you for more updates on what is going on there in Poland. You know, the border, and as well as people who are crossing, of course, they'll be giving you intel on what is going on, you know, on the other end of the divide.
I think it's important just to say this quickly. We are also saying that people should try to start considering other borders like Romania, Hungary, and all of that, because we're getting overwhelmed, and, you know, Poland is likely going to have a refugee, you know, crisis issue if we're not careful. So people listening out there should start considering, you know, going towards Hungary and Romania. And it's going to be a lot easier to access there.
All right, let's hope that your advice works, and also hope that everybody who is stranded there gets to a safe haven, you know, and remains safe. But I have to say thank you for joining us today on the program. Tadio Motoshaw, President, Nigerians in Diaspora Organization in Poland. Well, that's where we are. We'll now take a look at the movie videos on our YouTube channel in the past week as we close the show. Thank you for watching. I'm Victor Matthias.
A blast from the past video kicks off this week's top 5 videos as NSAS protest in Edo State turns bloody with thugs attacking protesters. It's followed by another video that crept into the charts week in, week out, where a police corporal and others are paraded for alleged robbery and rituals in Ondo State.
They were found at the burial ground, digging graves, wanting to take human parts.
Third Sport sees the parade of an AK-49 wielding fake soldier and 60 other suspects in Nasarawa State.
the suspect came down to Nasarawa State and started perpetrating his nefarious activities in Karu and Lafia before Nemesis caught up with him.
A parade of 4 suspects for the gruesome killing of a girlfriend of one of them takes second spots.
Don't fire from there! Don't fire from there!
While the battle between gunmen and unknown gunmen in Anambra State takes top spot as the video that tickled the fancy of our online viewers in the past week.